And greetings, students. Welcome to your literature lesson for Tuesday, April 21st. We're going to be introduced to an author by the name of John Updike, who wrote the poem The Quilt. He's also a very accomplished writer, probably more famous for his novels and short stories than he is his poetry. He actually enjoyed poetry growing up, but then kind of realized that, not a whole lot of poets were full-time. And so I better start writing other things too. But he did write poems, including the one that we're going to talk about today. But yeah, more famous for his novels. He passed away in 2009, and probably most famous for his rabbit novels. Rabbit Angstrom was the main character of the novels, and it was kind of neat concept that he would write about this character. Basically, he'd introduce a new novel every 10 years, updating you on the character and where he's at. And some of the updates sort of had some historical significance, so you could kind of see, how society or how the United States changed the character that you knew. But what we're going to be talking about today is a couple literary terms that have something to do with this poem, The Quilt. Alliteration is one of them. It's the repeated consonant sounds occurring at the beginning of words or within words. Alliteration is used to create melody, establish mood, and call attention to important words. So those are some examples of alliteration. You might remember this from the beginning of the year when we spent the first couple weeks talking about literary terms. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause the video, read through all 12 of these, and see if you can say them really fast. Okay, so I'm assuming that you've done this already, and hopefully you had some fun doing it. So just you see the repeating of certain sounds, and actually consonant sounds. They can be either at the beginnings of words or within words, and sometimes they can be used to create a mood. Our poem is going to have some examples of alliteration, but probably the best literary term to describe this poem would be metaphor. A metaphor is a figure of speech that involves an implied comparison between two basically unlike things. A quilt is going to be compared to something today. This quilt is nothing like this thing it's being compared to. So it's a metaphor, all right? And so we'll talk about that. What I'd like you to do now, it's a rather short poem. I'd like you to read through this poem on your own. Pause the video, all right? Read through this poem, and then we'll have a discussion on it. And we'll see if you can figure out what the quilt's being compared to in order to complete the metaphor. All right, I'm going to assume you have paused and read through the poem at this time. I'm just going to read through it since we have a little bit of time. It's a little bit of a short one. The quilt that covers all of us to date has patches numbered 1 to 48, 5 northern rents, a crooked central seam, a ragged eastern edge away of bunching uglily, and a, perhaps too energetic, color scheme. Though shaken every 20 years, this fine old quilt was never beaten on the line. It took long making, generations passed, while thread was sought and calico, and silk were coaxed from Mexico and France. The biggest squares were added last. Don't kick your covers, son, the bed is built, so you can never shake the clinging quilt that blanketed your berth and tries to keep your waking warm and palpable as atmosphere as earth it shall be tucked about you through your longest sleep. Since I composed this rather nifty couplet, the number rose to 50. Okay. So, you think you got it? All right, let's see if you're right. The quilt covers all of us. This is almost like a riddle, right? Can we solve the riddle? What's it talking about? Talking about a quilt? No, it's comparing a quilt to something. It has patches numbered 1 to 48. But it was 48, but now it's 50. I feel like we need Blue from Blue's Clues or something helping us. 5 northern rents, okay? A crooked central seam. Holes or gaps are rents. 5 holes in the quilt. 5 holes. You want me to reveal what this is about? Okay. The metaphor is the quilt is like the United States of America. I almost said it just now. I might as well, because I'm going to blow it, so I might as well just say it. All right, 5 northern rents, gaps, holes, the Great Lakes. A crooked central seam going right down the middle, that sounds like the Mississippi River. A ragged eastern edge, all right, sounds like most likely that's the Atlantic Ocean, the eastern edge, right? On the side of the east, yeah, west is the Pacific, east is the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a ragged eastern edge away. A bunching uglily. What out east bunches up the land uglily? That would be the Appalachians. And a perhaps too general color scheme. Though shaken every 20 years, so basically it's talking about a war. 1776, War of 1812, Civil War, right? And then World War I, World War II, you know, Vietnam, Korea, right? So every 20 years, it's talking about that. Although this was written in 1957, so around the time when Hawaii and Alaska were becoming the last 2 states. So he doesn't know about the wars coming up yet. Old quilt was never beaten on the line. So that's how you had quilts and you washed them. Before you had washing machines, you would just dry them on the drying line, and sometimes you would get the dust out of them in order to, and you'd beat them. You'd kind of puff them, and then dust would fly off. Try to clean them. It took long making. Generations passed while thread was sought and calico and silk were coaxed from Mexico. All right, so talking about the land that we got from Mexico, and then also France. Now, what land did we get from France? Thomas Jefferson and Napoleon, right? We got the Louisiana Purchase. And it says the biggest squares were added last. So the biggest squares were added last. Those are talking about the western states. So the western states that ended up becoming states later than anyone else were actually land-wise some of the largest ones. Don't kick your covers, son. The bed is built. In other words, we made our bed. You know, there's no going back. So you can never shake the clinging quilt that blanketed your berth and tries to keep. So basically, it's saying it shall be tucked about you through your longest sleep. Your longest sleep would be your death. And so till the day you die, this will be a part of you, this nation. And then it says, since I compose this rather nifty couplet, since I compose this rather nifty couplet, the number rose to 50. It's a tough one to say. All right, so basically saying that, hey, while I'm writing this, we just got Alaska and Hawaii as two more states, and now we have 50 states, just like we have today. 50 stars on the flag for 50 states. All right, let's go through our questions now. I've explained it to you. You know the metaphor is comparing a quilt to the United States. Number 1, according to the speaker, when will we be able to shake or get rid of the quilt? When will that happen? Never, right? Number 2, what is the quilt? The United States. And when did you realize this? It could have been when I told you what it was, but some of you, did you get it before? And I guess when would you have gotten that? Maybe the end, right? That was maybe the giveaway for you. Went from 48 to 50. I wonder. But you know what? It's very possible you didn't know that it was talking about the United States. But now you go back and you go, oh, yeah, that's what it is. And then I explained that first verse is kind of like, that's a tough one because you have to know what each part is talking about. And then once you know that, it becomes easier. Number 3, explain the 5 northern rents, the crooked central scheme, the ragged eastern edge. I explained all those. 5 northern rents were the Great Lakes, the 5 Great Lakes, of which Lake Michigan is very close to us. The crooked central seam as Mississippi. Ragged eastern edge would be the Atlantic Ocean. All right, number 4, bunching uglily is something cloth might do. What additional meaning does it take on in the context of this poem? It could be talking about, a quilt bunches uglily. Sometimes we have to adjust it maybe to make sure it covers all of us so that our feet aren't too cold. But you know, it could also be talking about what happened out east. I said the Appalachian Mountains, but you know, it could also be meaning talking about the Civil War, where we bunched uglily. The Battle of the Bulge, yeah, maybe that's what it's talking about for that one. And then number 5, do you agree with the speaker that the quilt can't be kicked off? What does that mean? It means that, you know, our country can't be destroyed or changed in any way. The land mass that we have is not going to be altered in any way. You know, but at the same time, who's in control? Who's in charge? That would be our Lord, right? And our Lord has blessed our country. And if there was a time when he decided that, you know, maybe the United States would not wouldn't exist, or would exist in a different way, he would ultimately decide that, right? But he has definitely blessed our nation with, you know, we can worship as we want to. We are free. We have certain freedoms that other countries do not have, and that's something to be thankful for, that our Lord graciously has allowed us to live in this country in that way. Okay, and then if you want to read another biography of John Updike, page 325, that was written a little bit, I guess a little bit before the one that I had posted for you. Let's talk a little bit more about this poem to get you ready for your test. All right, let's review. So if the sound of a word combines with the sound of others to form a pattern, what do we call that again? The word sounds, called alliteration. Oh, I didn't mention the one. Okay, so line 3 on page 323, 5 northern rents, a crooked central seam. A crooked central seam. You hear the alliteration, central seam. All right, so there's one example that the bed is built. There's another one. So you can kind of see alliteration throughout there, but just know that there's alliteration here, okay? In addition to metaphor. So the patches in quilt, what do they refer to? There used to be 48, now there's 50. Talking about the states, right? So the quilt is the United States, and each patch in the quilt are the states that make up the United States, right? Or the patches that make up the quilt. In quilt, it says, be tucked about you through your longest sleep, refers to death. That is going to be your longest sleep. Okay, more on this. So the number 50 in quilt refers not to the speaker's age, but it refers to the number of states in the United States. Know that for the quiz. All right. Those who are watching the video right now, I bet you're glad you are. And then the biggest squares in the quilt refer to the western states. Okay, so know that. That is what it's talking about. And then a ragged eastern edge in the quilt is talking about the Atlantic Ocean. It is not referring to Florida. Okay. All right, I think you're ready for the quiz. Make sure you look through this video one more time before you take the quiz on Thursday, just to make sure that you got it. All right, we'll see you later.